I'd say it's close enough. It's 5, what's that old say? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Thank y'all. What I would like to do, especially since a couple of you need to leave, just, real quickly, what I'd asked last time was going through, the rules. What I want to do is knock out a couple of, I guess what I would call it's the low-hanging fruit, the easy things. Something that I think there'll be general agreement on.
Y'all have a copy of the rule?
No, well, we've.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll get you a copy. What we did last time, pass out a copy of the existing rules. And what I asked folks to do is to kind of glance through them, see if anybody, just suggestions, comments, if there's anything like that. Dr. Bill had made 4 recommendations, 3 of which are I don't know, hoping it would seem to be rather non-controversial. And I wanted to get the committee's take on that. First one, I was reading. And before I start that, let me back up. Apparently, I made a couple of statements last time about the Supreme Court, and that was. Didn't explain that fully, and I will do so down the line. I was not saying that Groundwater District cannot take the spring into consideration. I didn't say that at all. So please, let me just put that on the table now. I apologize for the confusion on my part last time. Anyway, the first one, it just said Rule 302, and I called him, talked to him on the phone. That should be modified to explicitly state that the current model available groundwater in Kinney County should not be used as a permitting factor, since it is not consistent with the consistent with managing groundwater production to achieve the DFC. This is a little bit more technical on his part as the hydrologist, but if you look at Rule 302, it's got like 1 through 7 or 8, and what he's talking about is just adding this sentence as another number. Any discussion on that?
What would the sentence be?
He said modify it to explicitly state that the current modeled available groundwater should not be used as a permitting factor.
Because it's not reliable.
Well, yeah, that and the way he explained it is that in some years, what he explained in some years that number is high enough that he thought it would attract San Antonio. I mean, just someone outside the district trying to come in and say, well, you've got more than you need. And we all know, I think we know that that's really not the case.
Where is that on, 302?
302. Right, it'd be added as a number 7. That modeled available groundwater is not part of our permitting process.
And that's going to be updated in 2026.
No, this is a rule. So the board can adopt this.
Right, but I'm talking about the model MAG.
The MAG, apparently he updates all the time. I mean, that's part of what the hydrologist does.
Wait, could I maybe comment? Because I rewatched the September meeting with all the recommendations and elaborated on this. And he mentioned May 21st, 2026 is when the new DFC will be proposed. And then there will be a public hearing process. And then by January 5th of 2027, the board must accept the new DFC. And the MAG goes along with that, I believe, because he runs the DFC through a model, and then that produces a number for the MAG, the model available groundwater. And I think, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but as far as the rules committee, we don't have much power to address it other than to maybe acknowledge in the rules that we're not going to use the MAG as a permitting.
Consideration.
Yeah, consideration is,
That's
which is
what
what
you
this
Okay.
says.
That's right.
That's the proposed change.
Right.
I think so. It just says acknowledge.
Yeah.
We need a new pedestrian ad, but we
I
can't
sent you a copy of that. didn't
update the pedestrian.
Yeah, we can update that rule now, and he suggested that we do so.
Yeah, and because they're working on the current mag, GMA 7 is working on the current mag. Well, at the next meeting we'll be proposing mags and stuff. It won't be for a year or two, but we're in the process of doing that right now. And the mag is a 5-year mag, and then every 5 years we have to redo the dang thing. But anyway, so you're right. We're working on it right now. So when he does Kinney County groundwater, what he'll do is he'll include what you're saying in it, is that the springs aren't the automatic trigger that we're using. We're also using a well or whatever.
Did you try again?
But that's what he's talking about is what you said, that he'll incorporate that into the mag as he does his calculations for how much groundwater is available in Kinney County.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for mentioning that. That'll be discussed at the next
Yeah.
regional meeting.
Anything else on Dr. Bill's first recommendation? Anybody have a problem with us?
Well, I'd like to look into it, all new to me.
Yeah.
I mean, feel free to bring it up, but for the moment, objections?
Well, I mean, mags, isn't the state set the mags for,
No, sir.
no, they don't.
The mag set by, last week, or last time we talked about, I told them that the way it works is we have a groundwater management area, which is this one's GMA 7, which covers the Edwards Trinity, and each individual groundwater district gets their own mag for their area, and then we vote on them as a rule. We pass them all out, and everybody accepts. But if that's what you want yours to be, that's good enough for us, that deal. And then we turn, after we all pass those, then they come back. You have a public hearing. The water district will have a public hearing, and then we'll say this is the mag that they're proposing for GMA 7 for Kinney County. I'll have to do one in Uvalde County. And then you'll have a public hearing. Depending on the comments from the public hearing or whatever, the board will vote to accept that mag or not accept it or whatever. And then that mag will go on to the Water Development Board. Or to
That is, the mag is permanent water.
it's the amount available of groundwater available.
I wouldn't call it permanent.
It's the amount of water that's available during that period, during that 5-year period of time.
Because I know in Medina County, we have all those mags too.
Yeah. Anyway,
But it's
so
actually what's pumped too, isn't the mag?
yeah, well, it's
something to do with
calculated on what's pumped and what they think is available there to be pumped. And so then that goes on in Uvalde and Medina County. It goes to Region L. In this case, it goes to Region J, and Region J gets it. And so then Region J gets the mag for Kinney County, Real, Edwards, all the ones in Kirk County, and all those. And and my impression is it's so that the regions can see who they can steal from to give to somebody else. So in our case, in Region L, they look at Uvalde, they look at Carrizas, they look at Medina counties, they look at all up around, and they say, well, San Antonio needs some extra water, so we can take a little out of Uvalde, we can take a little out of Zavala County, and we can make up the shortfall that they're going to have, and they won't ever miss it. That's basically what the regional job is to figure out who they can take from Robin Hood.
And I understand that what we're doing is we're accepting Bill Hutchinson's amendment here that says rural recognition that current MAG is not reliable and reduce potential misuse in permit hearing. That's what the substance of it is. I don't know how it's going to be written, but the idea is that by us doing this and the board passing that, it won't be credible evidence in a permit hearing. We don't want that. It would hurt us to have the wrong information in our mag. So we're just preventing damage, I think.
Yes, sir. Because basically when the GMA comes up with a mag, then anybody who wants to challenge that, they can. Several years ago, Del Rio challenged the mag that we were doing. And so what we did was we said, well, you just don't have enough water for us to calculate into the system for it to be usable. And so a couple of landowners over at Del Rio that wanted a higher amount of groundwater in Del Rio, they couldn't sue us because you can sue our protest the mag that they come up with. Well, that took it out of there where there wasn't anything for them to protest. So that's basically what he's doing, is saying that there's not enough, that what we're saying is that there's not enough available groundwater in this mag for you to be able to protest it. It gives you some more defense when they protest it.
Well, the mag is wrong, and so don't use it because it's wrong.
How much is the mag? What did it say?
Yeah, what is
I have it here for GMA 7. It's bear with me. Sorry. For GMA 7, it's 70,341 acre feet per year. And for context, in 2022, actual pumping in Kinney County for both groundwater management areas was 9,600.
Oh, wow.
So that's less than
So
1/7.
we don't want them, okay,
Okay.
thank you, so we don't want them thinking we have 72,000 acre feet available, cause we don't.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, got it.
So the current rule 302 is titled Evaluation of Permit Application. And if he wants this statement put in, this rule should be modified. Well, it should be modified to explicitly.
So what was he saying
state
the mag
that should
be?
current model available groundwater in Kinney County should not be used as permitting
We
factor.
discussed it at the September
So,
meeting, but he didn't.
We're just saying don't use it
Yes,
in that particular rule.
Yes, sir. Well, what it boils down to is you're not using the springs as your only caliber to say we have extra water.
Although I did hear Hutchison say we could maintain spring flow as
Yeah.
the DFC, like the central.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would emphasize once again that all of this, if we go back to them and to the board and say, okay, Dr. Bill's, recommendation number one, the committee, agrees with that, then he and the lawyer will put it in the proper terminology. They're not going to, trust us. I wouldn't trust us to do that.
So-
At least not me.
Charlie, this is kind of a procedural question, but I'm assuming that we're discussing this today and we seem to be in agreement, but since this is a process within our committee that's going to go on for a couple of months, that all of this it's not finalized until everything is finalized at the end.
Suits me.
And
Doesn't
I
the board
said-
have to approve it?
But then it goes to the
Anything that we do,
has to be approved.
the board can pick and choose and do some, not others, or do nothing, or do everything. But yes, to answer your question,
Suggestions.
Yeah, you're basically making a recommendation to the board.
Okay.
right.
So then what it's saying is the mag is,
Right now.
got this 70,000 acre feet of water under the mag, the current mag.
And we don't have that.
Okay, but then it says it's not consistent with the current DFC. So what is the current DFC on allowed water allowed?
For-
One's saying 70, and it's not. So what is that difference then
The
with the DFC? If they're not consistent, like it says.
I think
And
I can speak to that.
It's like it needs to have some numbers beside it so you can see, like she said, the GMA 7 is 70,000 acre feet, but that's tied to the mag. But otherwise you wouldn't know that, right? Unless you looked it up.
And
Yeah.
It's kind of like misleading all here, it's
No,
not
I-
going together.
I don't
they
know.
need some
I
numbers
don't
beside it.
know the numbers, but Dr. Bill said that he will watch the
Yeah.
sessions,
Yeah.
and Dr. Bill maybe get us some numbers next time. I mean, because it's a very valid point.
Yeah, because
Yes, ma'am.
And Dr. Bill did provide some helpful context during that September meeting, and it's recorded on Adam's channel, but he said, and I tried to type down the exact quote, because he presented this scenario if in 2022 we had, instead of pumping 9,600, if instead we had pumped 4,000 to 5,000, he kind of brought that up, and then there was a question to ask, well, if we want to maintain spring flow, if that's the DFC is maintaining spring flow, then shouldn't the MAG look more like 4,000 to 5,000? And he said, well, he started to say, if 4,000 to 5,000 is the MAG, then what you're doing is protecting summer drought spring flow of 1 to 8 CFS. Or would you like to protect the historic use or historic spring flow, which is like 22 CFS? And then he said, which would mean you would have to then essentially average all the years of pumping, which would essentially be somewhere in the average of the all actual use would be, it turns out to be the same, about 4,500. So part of why the MAG is so inflated, to my understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, is because it was taking into consideration historic permits rather than existing use. And I think what Hutchison's interested in, and what I think some of the people at that meeting were interested in, was calibrating it more to actual use and not so much the historic permit amounts. Because those are very large, but actual pumping is not that much.
But how can you go against historic use where it was proven that it was pumped at one time?
Well, it's more like, what's the model's available groundwater now?
Well, I mean, it was pumped at one time, so it was available.
At that time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's not much.
Well, I'm not
I mean,
sure.
the farms are still here, is what I'm saying. So,
But they pumped a total of 9,600.
yes, I know. So in all water law, no court has ever gone against historic use. So that's going to be a real battle.
what?
No court of law has ever gone against historic use if you prove that you pumped it, even if it was 50 years ago.
And this wouldn't change the permit allotments. They would just change the map.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. So how are you trying to implement that into what we're doing here?
Well, no one's pumping their full permit, so it wouldn't.
I know, but you're gonna.
We're getting a little far afield, because what you're getting into is
Well, that's what I'm saying. How can you go start off with this when we don't have that? Like,
well, yeah, I don't see it as being totally related. What you're getting into is more the drought management plan that we want to come up with.
In a certain way.
And I view some of this other stuff as kind of housekeeping, whatever, preliminary.
Yeah.
But the drought management stuff, I mean, everything you're talking about is.
Well, what I'm saying is, if they cut the MAG down to, say, 10,000 acre feet pumped, well, then you're taking away from your historical use permit right off the top from the MAG, right? No.
You still have the same permit amount, but you're just not pumping the full amount of the permit, which you wouldn't need to, because no one is doing that right now. No matter how much.
Well, that's what I'm trying not to get ahead. I'm trying to what you said,
Yeah.
but it gets confusing with the MAG, with the GMA 7, right?
Again, I think all Dr. Bill's saying is that when on evaluating permits, he's talking about new permits.
Yeah, new permit.
That we want to specify that the MAG is not consistent, it's not controlling whatever with our DFCs.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's not to be considered.
It says not consistent with managing groundwater production to achieve the DFC. So this is the actual, and it's not the actual. So we want to be.
But this is the new permit stuff for
New
now.
permit.
But no,
Okay. That's what I want to clarify.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
difference.
That's a big difference there. Okay.
The second one that he recommended was the split between small and large permits. He was just trying to streamline that a little bit, make it easier for a small permittee, something less than 100 acre feet a year. He said 100 acre feet or less is unlikely to have any significant impact on spring flow and should not be subjected to the same burden of detailed and extensive submittals. Over 100 acre feet, the applicant is to submit a study as to how it would affect the spring. I think that's what this one boils down to. Does anybody have a problem with?
I think the Edwards has, like, they're going to put a certain pump into the exempt well.
Size hole, yeah.
Size hole, yeah. They like
It's 6 inch, isn't it?
I think 6 inch, and they got like 100 gallons a minute, but it's not a way like a a guy wants to drill a well, put his business in, he can do that. And have it.
So like
Well,
over there,
but it's,
so like over there where it is, I think it's a 6-inch hole, because your normal house pump is about 4 inches around, right?
Yeah, it's a 6-inch well for
So
domestic livestock use.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you're allotted, like, say you want to build a new house on your place and you want to drill a well. Well, you're allotted 25,000 gallons a day. That's what you're allotted.
And that's still averages, makes like 27 acre feet
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
it's still less than 100.
You add it up, but that's what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to store it besides your storage tank for like your house. So you can't put a pond out there.
Right.
They all
So
do it.
with the 100 acre, again, this is for permits, not exempt wells.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
See,
Okay.
that it's not, the exempt,
Okay.
I mean, that's,
What are the exempt wells like?
Yeah.
no, it's just like talking about the, 28 acre feet a year or something like that.
Those are exempt wells?
Yeah,
Consider-
an exempt well under Chapter 36 rules is for livestock and household use.
Yeah.
If you want to put in a mechanic shop in front of your house, you put a well in, then that's going to be in Uvalde County. We consider that to be an industrial use,
Oh, really?
and then we have a different calculation for that. But it's for Chapter 36 says you can't deny anybody water rights for household or livestock purposes.
So back to that, I mean, someone want to put in an industrial shop, but something under 100 acre feet, it would be a permitted well, not exempt.
Gotcha.
But it would be more streamlined in the application process.
Okay.
Whereas anything over 100, then they have to do, different tests and jump through hoops vis-a-vis the spraying.
Would there be an issue of a person having 5,000 acres and breaking it up into a bunch of 100 acre feet?
A bunch of
Yeah,
subdividing a ranch
because
into-
everybody tends to be attracted to the exemptions. And this can sometimes be one of those things where if you're going to do it, you may need to have a limit.
Well, they have a new law that just passed took effect in January. It's about subdividing a county. If you're subdividing a ranch in a county, you have to get a plat by the commissioner's court. And I just had this conversation with the commissioner in Uvalde that it says right now that you may request a study to how it's going to affect the overall aquifer use for that area, so that there's going to be water for the next 30 years for those plots that you're selling, and that may change to a shall, that the county will request a study for those lots, if that's what you're referring to, where they break up a ranch into ranchettes or whatever.
I think this one may need some. Maybe we ought to wait until next month. And
No, but this still is, what you're still talking about. If you break up a ranch, you're talking about, exempt. But what they're trying to do now, what they're talking about is, they're breaking up ranches and they're using the exempt thing to get around, but my understanding is we can't, it's still exempt under current law. If you break up a ranch into 20 acre ranchettes, then under current law, everybody can drill a well.
I'm just talking about the exemption, the permit application, and not getting enough information.
But again, an exempt well is not a permit application. All they do is notify the district, hey, we're drilling an exempt well. Right? I mean, it's just, they pay a deposit, $350. They drill their well and they get their money back if they give us the data from the driller. But we, the district, do not have.
You don't have any.
We don't have any power over an exempt well. So in your example, if you're take a 5,000 acre ranch and divide it into 20 acre ranchettes, I have to get the calculator out, figure out how many. That's a pot load of 20 acres. They can all drill an exempt well under current law.
Is it realistic on this permit application of less than 100 acre feet per year, that if we did just a general exemption, is what we're talking about, or a limited permit, would it be something that we would want to be concerned with, that too many people would be trying to use it to get around? Which one? This is the 100 acre feet deal that we're talking about now.
It would be like, what we're talking about would be if it's something I like to use the example, somebody out here on Highway 90, like Lance said, they want to put in a little welding shop, for instance. Okay, all they want is and of course a welding shop, they would be providing the service and getting money for it, so it would be like commercial or industrial, whatever. Okay, should they have to go through all the steps to have the 3 public hearings and pay all this amount of money when all they're going to have is a bathroom and a sink to wash their hands?
I understand that, and I'm just thinking about the bigger guys who look at this permit simplified version and think, well, I'll just try to get my larger needs taken care of by these 100 acre feet per year wells, just a whole bunch of them.
Well, that'd be pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's still
Drill
gonna
that
be,
many wells.
it's still gonna be a permitted well.
Do you think the expense would keep them?
I think the expense would outweigh anything they'd ever get from it, so.
And maybe there could be somewhere for the middle, because I think, yeah, after a certain point, it would just get ridiculous, the cost. But maybe to have 2 or 3, which would stack up to, 300 acre feet a year. And if multiple individuals are doing that, that gets up to 1,000 acre feet pretty quick. But what if we proposed maybe a limit of 3 exempt wells per?
Well, again, the exempt and a small, it's not, they're different things. I think
So
we're seeing weeds where there aren't any weeds.
For somebody to want to pump 1,000 gallons a year, they're going to have at least an 8-inch well with a big pump in it. So
1,000 acre feet.
yeah, 1,000 acre feet. So to do that, you're going to have to be irrigating 200 acres or whatever if you're using it for irrigation purposes. I can't think of any kind of commercial use unless you were bottling it and selling it that you would even come close to using that much water.
The only thing I'd say is if they want to apply for over 100 acre feet a year, if they want to get it, the only way they could go get it, I would think, is they'd have to come to somebody that has a permit and buy it or lease it from that permit. So you're still, right, Curtis? So that's, so what's happening in San Antonio, Castro, where they're putting in all those subdivisions is that they're going to people that have permits and buying that permit. And then they're just drilling that well over there. Or they're getting saws to supply it, well, they hand over the permit to saws.
Yeah, the city of Castroville.
Or Castroville, whoever's gonna supply the water. But that would be, so his question, I think, to make it simpler, is that they would have to go to somebody that has the 100 acre feet, and they gotta come up with their agreement, and whatever they want, that's their business. But they gotta purchase that, or lease it, or some kind of has to be established.
So I'm thinking that.
But that's what they're doing, and that would kind of stop, it would stop for more water being used. It would put a cap on the 77,000, basically.
But
As a number to use, okay?
Can one person get 10 of these, for example?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying with my way, he could go get 10, but he'd have to come to me and buy it, or go to somebody that has it now.
Well, maybe he doesn't. Maybe all he has to do
But it
is.
would cap the system at 77,000. The current deal is, it would cap it right there. So you're just moving water around, but you're not pumping anymore.
So
That's a
you're
lot.
saying don't approve any new permits?
Well, I'm just throwing an idea out there. I'm not saying, I mean, I just know how it's done over there. Because the Edwards Aquifer in San Antonio is capped at 400-something thousand acre feet, right? All those new homes going in, they're just buying from the farmer, or they're buying from some places, cement mixes that went out of business. They still got their water rights. And they're buying those, is what they're doing.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be on that landowner's property.
No.
They're just buying
They're buying the
They're
permit.
transferring it.
They're transferring it, yes.
Kind of like you can write a check on First State Bank and deposit it in the account
That's the
here.
same thing. But that cap is the cap on the water.
This kind of leaves it open.
Yeah, they're gonna be adding to that.
You can just keep
If
pumping.
you're gonna use the current amount allotted now, the 77,000, well, somebody comes in here and starts clearing dirt, well, they're gonna start adding 100. Well, it ain't gonna be 77,000 anymore, it's gonna be whatever whatever it is,
So do you think this is?
It might take 20 years, who knows, I don't know, but that's what's gonna happen.
Are you arguing for or against this?
It does seem like a lot before there's any kind of permit. I mean,
So you're saying 100, the threshold is too high and you think it should
I think
be
it sounds a
lower?
little high. I mean,
See, the only thing they have over there is the permits that are exempt.
What
That's
about
the only
50
other thing they
acres?
have.
So you're saying, lower the 100 to what, 50, so anything over, I'm making up 50.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything over 50, they have to go through all the steps,
if you wanted to make it easy to be 50, because I mean, if you go by like he said, the 25,000 gallons a day is what, 27 acre feet.
17 gallons a minute.
28.
Yeah, well,
It comes at 23 acres.
yeah, 23 acre feet. You know, just to go a little bit, you could go to 40 or 50. I mean, make it kind of a little bit. You don't want to be right on that line.
So why don't we do 50 acres?
I mean,
See how
that
it
would
works.
be. I mean, I would think, but I mean, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
well, the only way to really stop it is you got to keep that. You know, you got to have you got to have a draw cap, and that's the only because this way there's no cap whether you like it or not. And I'm not saying it's good or bad to have a cap, but that's you know.
So what I'm hearing is that the
I
recommendation
don't know how
is
to write
okay,
it.
but let's lower it to 40 or 50.
I would think.
What I'm hearing though from him is not to lower it to 50, but to not approve the new exempt wells at all.
No, you don't have a choice on
We
it.
don't have
You don't have a choice on
You have no choice on
We
it.
approve every exempt well because we can't
You
stop
can't
it.
stop it. It's the
The
same
state,
way
the
over
state
there.
of Texas says that
Yeah.
if I walk into any water district in Texas and say I want an exempt well, they give me a farm, I pay whatever fees they have, and I drill my well.
And
Now,
Yeah.
even the saws, if you go to San Antonio, to Bexar County,
Yes.
and say I have 5 acres over here and I'm drilling an exempt well over here, then the Edwards can't even say anything about
Yeah, they
it.
don't
And I want to guarantee you, the Edwards has got a pretty good mic. They can back up a lot.
Why don't we
Because
do
there's-
50
that's
acres
what we're talking about,
for
or
this
commercial.
deal and see how.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It could be anything.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I think 50 acres sounds like a good.
I'm gonna do 100 is.
The thing of it is, will they even have a meter up when they do this well? Will they have to be on?
they're all
Janelle,
required to be.
Janelle, any
Well,
permitted
exempt
well would have a
Well,
meter, right?
exempt well is not. But the other-
Any
This
permit,
is not-
and Marty checks them depending on the size,
Yes.
which we'll get to in a minute. So yeah, it has
This
it
is
has
a
a meter.
permitted well.
permit will have a meter on
Okay.
it. Mine is.
And this
50
might also
acres.
feed into another recommendation about the auditing, which I think is,
Well, that's next, let's say, hold on,
okay.
we'll get to it. Alright,
But
so on recommendation 2 from Dr. Bill, we're in general agreement that it's okay, but drop it to 50 instead of 100. Is that what I'm hearing?
And I think add measures to ensure that you're enforcing properly, like Lance was saying, you have to kind of monitor that people aren't pushing beyond that permit, and maybe that's what goes into this other.
Well, if they
rule.
go beyond 50, they got to do all the other tests, right? It's not.
If they're permitted for 50 and they go over, then you get into the penalty of whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what those are, but we may have to up that, but yeah.
But you wouldn't know they're going over unless
Yes,
you audit them.
Marty's gonna find out. It's a permitted
They
well.
have to have
A
a
permitted well
meter.
has a meter.
Yeah, permit has a meter.
It has
No
a
matter
meter.
what. Yeah.
You know, exempt wells do not.
Yes.
Because they're exempt.
So on that first bullet point where it says streamline process parentheses testing period is not needed, is that referring only to these small permits?
Yes.
Only the small ones?
Yes.
Not,
Yeah.
not larger ones?
Right.
Because then on the next page where it says, testing permit be eliminated, is that referring to like no more testing permits at all, or again, just specifically for these small wells?
Yeah, they're
Because
permitted.
that was a little.
They're permitted.
unclear to me the way it's worded.
They'll have a meter,
Mhm.
but he said it's so small it won't have that much effect. So therefore, why go through all the testing,
Right.
etc.
Yeah, I just wanted
Are
to
we-
make sure because it's just like the wording on here, to me it wasn't clear, because it says outlines 5 types of permits, including a testing permit. I recommend that the testing permit be eliminated. And that doesn't say specifically for the small wells, so that's why I'm just confused.
Was for
Do you understand what I mean?
new permitted wells.
On the industrial one that we're talking about,
I mean, we
50
really-
acres.
Yeah, I was thinking that was
altogether for everything,
applying
or just the
to-
small?
That's how it reads to me as well.
But again, this is
100 acre feet.
Okay.
But
demonstrate
need to make
impact
that
on the
clear,
spring
'cause
if it's over 50.
so I was thinking this was all one revised permitting process, but maybe not. Large permit applications, testing permit be eliminated from the 100 acre or altogether?
See, that's what I'm asking.
My
Yeah.
understanding
See,
is
that's
it's for the small ones.
For the 100 acre.
Yeah, but
Well, let's make that clear in our
Because you look on page
communication, yes, that all of this under revised permitting process applies to 100 acre per year.
This is all on new wells that are going.
Yeah, it's only on new.
hold on.
Only on new. It's only on new.
Because when you look in the
So
actual,
no testing permit. Testing permit be eliminated on all permitted wells.
No,
That's just a
So now what are they testing for on a testing permit? Is it effect on our DFCs vis-a-vis the spring and
Yeah, they have
or the
pump
sewer
for
also
like-
well, or is it on quality or what?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with quality. It's for at least a year to determine if it has any effect on like surrounding landowners or whatever. And but it have first, if they don't already have a well, they've got to drill a well. Okay, they got to pay for that. Okay, then there has to be something posted in the newspaper that they're applying for a testing permit, and that has to have a public hearing. That takes time because of the length of time that it has to be in the paper and so forth. Okay. Then when that time ends, or they have, in the meantime, they have to turn in a monthly pumping report showing how much they pump for that month. Then when it finally gets to the end, then there's another thing that has to go in the newspaper that they're applying for an actual permit. And there again, that requires another public hearing. And I think what he's talking about here, and that's the same thing if it's something that requires a permit, like, commercial or agriculture or something, trying to get that number smaller so they don't have to go through such an extended length of time to get like 25 acre feet.
But you're saying, what I'm hearing again, if you're thinking, if it's a big enough, well, if it's over 50 or, our recommendation, then they still need to go through that
Yes.
testing.
Yes.
Which answers your question.
Yeah.
We need to clarify that the big ones still have to be
Right.
tested.
right.
At the end of that testing period, are you saying that a permit may or may not be granted depending
Right.
on, okay.
Right. And
So they have to drill the well, run it a year, and if it affects things adversely, then, they may have to plug the well.
Yeah.
Is that?
Or bring it down to where it would be like an equip it to where it could not
Reduce the permit to a level that won't affect
Right.
whatever.
Well, I would say we're disagreeing with this second dot of the four, where he says, I recommend the testing permit be eliminated. We're not approving that. We're just approving the third and fourth, dealing with 100 acre feet per year permit applications. Is that right?
I would say we need to clarify that with him, but I was reading it as to the small ones, not all of it.
Yeah, I was too, but I would say I would disagree with this second.
Your dots are different from mine. Yeah.
They're different, okay.
It's totally different.
Yeah, I don't think,
I recommend that.
Oh, these, okay. So, we're not recommending that testing permits be eliminated.
Only on small ones.
I think that language
No, we
is
still
confusing.
have-
It seems like Bill, or
So,
Dr. Hutchinson
let
is
me
saying.
clarify that with him.
Okay,
We still
that's
want-
fine.
What's the sense of the
I think
group
the
that
50, you
it
don't
should be
test.
tested on big ones?
I think so, but I think add what Hutchinson is suggesting, which is also approve or deny it based on the evaluating the impact to the DSC. Because currently, like Janelle said, the testing permit only measures the impact to surrounding wells, not the
Not
impact to
DSC.
the springs
Okay.
or management zone 10 impact DSC.
Like you said, we could check with Dr. Bill, but I think the small ones, anything less than if you went with 50 acre feet, I don't think that would require a testing permit. Because the whole purpose of it is.
No testing on the small ones.
Right.
But what we want to know is if he thinks we ought to keep testing on the bigger ones, and then also how it interacts with the the DFC?
Yes.
Okay.
What kind of testing do they do? Monitoring the other wells.
Okay.
So number 2 of the 4, we're agreeing to apply that streamlined process, but getting a permit to wells 50 gallons,
For 50 acre feet.
50 acre feet. Right.
And then we're gonna clarify with him on the testing thing, because what I'm getting the sense of this group is that the group still wants testing on the bigger ones,
Yes.
right?
So this whole number 2 just applies to the 50
Smaller.
small wells.
And we also need to clarify on the other. His recommendation number 3, he wants pumping reports monthly. Since Marty's on board, we have another employee here to go out in the field and check things. And then he also had wanted her to check the big wells, at least monthly, and what he called medium wells 3 to 5 times a year, and the small ones 1 to 2 times. I also want to post that monthly on the website, more transparency, let the public see it. Is there any objection to more transparency on this? And since we have Marty, more auditing, also it should take some of the burden off of some of the stuff that Jim is coming up with equipment-wise. It would seem that we're moving away from having to burden the landowners with doing reports, but we'll either get it remotely or Marty can get it.
Does everybody have this
We have it, but it's in a different format. It would appear. Mine doesn't.
No, everyone
say the
has
job.
This is the one that Hutchinson sent, but do y'all have Hutchinson's letter?
We passed it out last time. I thought
Yeah.
it was available last time.
I thought that's what you had.
Yeah, I do have it.
He has, but his is in a different format or something.
Well, I've got it. No, I've got this one.
Oh, okay.
This is-
Well, no, that's
this
the one
is
we're
Bill's-
looking at.
Bill's
That's the one
letter.
we're looking at.
Yeah, and it's this number 3 is increased permit pumping
Yes,
reports. to
That's the
monthly
one.
users.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Can I raise something about the auditing process?
Okay.
And that was something Lance mentioned earlier, like, you can have an exempt well, but there's really nothing stopping you from pumping it into a tank or some sort of holding place, and it's been known to happen in the county.
Yeah, but if you're pumping water out of a well that pumps 15 gallons a minute into a dirt tank, your electricity bill is going to be outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen people that
don't care though.
that have enough money they don't give it.
Yeah, if you're making money, you can
I
spend
can
it.
show you one between Bandera and Kerrville where the guy, and they came up with a deal that's called a vanity pond, where he drilled a 8-inch irrigation well so he could make more money than to do it. And he put a tank in where it couldn't catch any water, so he had to pump water into it in Kerr County.
So what is your request, Gage?
I guess maybe since this is suggesting that we only audit low priority or impact wells 1 to 2 times a year, I'm just wondering, they may appear to be low priority and impact, but unless they're being audited and physically monitored, we don't really know what their impact is. They could
But they're
be-
exempt.
Right, so we further
exempt.
don't.
Well,
have
if
information.
they're cheating on the exemption,
Yeah,
if you cheat on your taxes and your neighbor finds out, he's going to call and tell them about it.
I sure hope so.
Well, so you can just kind of consider that
What?
that if somebody was doing what you're talking about doing, their house would be going dry while this guy was pumping into a tank. Now, I want to guarantee you they would call and say, hey, my well's going dry, and my neighbor's pumping into a dirt tank so he can have some ducks or something. That's not going to float very far in the county, I wouldn't think.
Well, and there's also a difference between trying to build a 100-acre lake or something that's the size of this room,
I've seen all these ranches.
for your cattle and
It's
critters.
moss. Well,
So do we have no checking system for exempt
everything
wells?
else is dry.
Right, so it is.
Nobody I know does.
It's happening.
You could figure, what do you probably have, 1,500 exempt wells in this
You
county?
gotta make sure they don't put too big a pump in the hole.
Probably,
Yeah.
maybe a little more.
So you got 1,500 exempt wells in this
I
county,
wish you'd.
you're gonna have to have a full-time person. If they did 5 wells a day, they ain't gonna be doing anything but driving around the county looking, checking exempt wells, and so.
You can check it once every 5 years, but, you know.
I don't know of any district that checks.
No district I know of.
No interest in.
Do we have
checking
Antonio
wells.
Is that an actual number?
But I don't know, I asked you, I'm just guessing. I know I got more than 1,500 in Uvalde County.
Yeah, they pump it all the time.
And if you were going around checking all the wells in Uvalde County that were exempt, you'd have 2 full-time staff that wouldn't have anything else to do.
Mr. Bone did have an interesting point though.
They will pump year round. You see the moss going into the tank. You know, it's the only tank around that's got water and everything else is dry.
Well, I've got a
And you
windmill.
mentioned you could change the pump.
You could put a bigger pump in that same exempt hole.
Well, you can always figure out a way to cheat.
Yeah.
I know some people that were on the Edwards board
Yeah.
that took the nameplate off their pump and they put a 1.5 horse pump in,
Yeah.
where for a domestic well you're only putting a 1 horse pump in.
Yeah.
You know,
So there may be.
I would like to
some-
prevent that sort of thing from happening.
well,
It is a lot
won't
lazy.
you won't have anything
Yeah.
else to do for the rest of your life but go around checking those.
Yeah.
Because I mean, can you imagine how many exempt wells? It would take full-time staff just to do that. The Edwards can't even do that.
Well, then maybe, because it seems to be these rule recommendations, we would be streamlining the process to apply for those exempt wells, so it's making it even harder on us to monitor the
But see, that's where the
ones
state
we
comes in,
have.
and you can't overrule the state because they're exempt. That's the problem.
I've got windmills that I have a storage tank, and the storage tank fills up. It has a line running off it to a dirt tank, just because I worked hard enough to get it out of the ground. I'm not going to just waste it.
But
Yeah, well, that's.
I like a storage tank because that way your pump can run steady and
Yeah.
cut off.
Oh, yeah.
And then sit, you know. To me, you know, some wells may be so weak, they may have to have that.
You know, there's a lot of them. You have to have a
One
storage
makes
tank.
a gallon or two.
Well, there's no rules against a storage tank, but it's for a storage tank for what its purpose is. You know, so
Like I said,
And, you know,
you're pumping into a dirt tank, you know, the size of the room where the cattle can get to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an accepted agricultural
Oh, yes,
practice.
I'm not arguing against that at all.
But no,
But something
we're,
like a
we're not
50
gonna get
acre
in the business of monitoring exempt wells
yeah.
now. I mean, someday, if everything else works out, we solve the
But
problem.
we should be encouraged to file maybe a complaint if we know of.
Do we have
an
the size of
exempt
the
well
hole in
that's-
the exempt well?
Usually it's
Yeah,
6
yeah,
inch.
when it was drilled.
Yeah, and your rules is probably going to say 6 inch casing.
That kind of helps.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, that stops a lot of it right there.
We know when we get the pump report, when we get the driller's log in.
Yeah, remember they put a $350 deposit up, and then they get it back when we get the driller's report.
And that might be one of the requirements for exempt well that can't go over a certain size.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What would
It
be
is standard.
something-
Standard is 6 inch for exempt wells.
Yeah, but is it required?
Is it in our
Yes.
that way now?
Yeah, I don't know.
That I don't know.
It
Is it
should be.
What was
on an
it?
exempt well? Is a max of 6 required, or is it defined as
Or max-
6 or less?
I'd have to check on that.
I don't
I was
know.
thinking,
I
was
don't know.
thinking-
I don't know.
Look at it. Is it
I was thinking 8, but I may be mistaken on that.
Would you make a note? Let's
Sure.
check on that. Have it for everybody next time, please.
Because anything other than 6 inch would be just too much.
Well, you can see that up.
You got temptation then.
So again, on Dr. Bill's recommendation of checking the big ones at least monthly, etc.
That's
In
in
general,
priority times or what? Yeah.
I mean, as long as the district's checking them, I don't have a problem with it. But if you're going to ask me to do that, it's not going to happen every month.
oh no, and that's the whole.
I mean-
that was the whole idea.
I mean, I'll try, but it's. I mean,
We didn't hire Marty just for
Yeah,
good
I was
looks
gonna say,
and
yeah.
charming personality.
yeah.
We're going to get some mileage out of it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Marty. You know I'm kidding. But no, seriously, that was the whole idea of hiring her. Janelle didn't have enough, Janelle's running the office and, she didn't have enough time. And so, it also, the idea was to take the burden off of the landowner.
I mean, I don't know what the difference is, high priority and medium.
I was
And
gonna
low.
say that.
What's the difference with 1 or 2 times a year? That seems like more.
I think it's
Somewhere-
the management zones. High,
So-
high priority impact are zone 1, medium priority impact are zone 2, and low priority are zone 3. And Hutchinson has the map
Yeah,
and the
it
zones.
was vis-a-vis the spring, the spring impact is what he's talking about with the word impact, and then also volume. Even if it's not right at the spring, wanted the bigger ones checked. I do not recall his definition of big, medium, and little. But
Oh, okay, I thought they were, these were like droughtier times or whatever.
no, that was somewhere in one of his deals. He talked about how many permits there were, and yet how many weren't used, and how many pumped above a certain amount. And once you narrowed it down, it really wasn't that many that were pumping that much. And so the idea was, Marty could hit those pretty easily, and then and hit all of them in the course of a year, and put it on the website, etc.
My only question left for that one would be, when might Marty be able to develop a schedule and a process to report over pumping?
You could do a schedule, but it's gonna all depend on weather. Some of these places, she may not be able to get into. And a lot of farmers and ranchers don't want nobody going in there and butting up everything. So I don't know if you could come up with a schedule.
And just getting a hold
You
of
could
the
try it.
rancher and farmer, making sure it's okay with them to go out there,
But I
So-
think, is Hutchison specifying that we need to come up with like a time each month to go to these specific wells, and then
Well, like Rick said, it's not like she can check well A on the second day of every month or something. It's
And
just,
some of them, they have to make appointments to go to, right, Marty?
yes, sir. I mean, we can't just drive up there. We have to call the landowner and make sure it's okay. And it may not work because some of them want us to go out. They want to go out with us, so it may not work. This week, he said we'll come out next week. It depends on the landowner.
So the landowner can keep
Or-
the inspector off the property.
I mean,
we want to cooperate, but.
keep
And I think all that
us
can
off
be
the
done while
property.
still having a schedule, which is what the rule specifies, is to come up with a schedule.
I think
And
legally they
the schedule could
it's the
just
schedule.
be.
Yeah.
That is our
It's just
goal.
courtesy.
It's not a schedule, it's a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and if she's having trouble getting on a property or something, then she brings it back to the board, and we'll get hold of the landowner, see what the problem is, and I guess if they're absolutely uncooperative, which that hadn't been the case.
Yeah, it hasn't
Janelle
been the
has a
case.
good
It's
report.
just getting with their schedule and everything.
We've never had
Yeah.
that problem.
I mean, it's just not a problem, but to say, an absolute schedule, no, it's gonna be monthly. I mean, this month it may be the first.
I have a well that the pivot goes over, so it's gonna have to be time when that pivot going on.
Yeah.
So maybe, like, it seems like by the end of the year, a schedule might be developed, a loose schedule of which wells were audited this many times.
Well, I mean,
Also,
she'll be able to
she'll
get
have a list, but.
I'll have a list, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we just need it to go from vague to specific at some point, right?
Again, it's a goal, but it depends on a lot of things. If the roads are muddy, we're probably not gonna be complaining about the spring or anything, because we got rain. Standing under your pivot, I may go with you someday, just remember what it feels like
to get wet.
to have wet
Get the
fall.
dust stuff.
No,
Honey,
we'll still want to
could
know
play
what's
into
going
it
on.
also.
What's that?
Honey could play into it also.
Yeah, that's true.
But looking at the time, a couple things. Unless, if some of you, didn't get a chance to go through the rule thing, unless somebody has any other of the rule changes that they want to discuss next time, and we will do that. I mean, I'm not closing out anything at all. Henceforth, I think we've kind of agreed on what I call the low hanging fruit. I mean, we've changed a couple of them. I'll try to, get with Greg and Dr. Bill. They will put it in a format to present to the board. Hopefully they can do it in time to let this committee look at it, for one final look before they, present it. Certainly the board meetings are open, anybody's welcome to come comment at that time. Henceforth, what I would like to, everybody to do before our next meeting, or next meetings, starting with the next one, is this, drought contingency plan. I mean, that's mainly the reason we're here. I want to know, thoughts, recommendations, how to approach it. I mean, and please, before there's any misunderstanding, I'm giving examples that are absurd. I'm not supporting any of these, but say on this extreme, you have people that say that nobody ought to draw anything out of the ground whatsoever for any purpose. And then over here, by God, it's my land, and I'll pull as much of that stuff out of there as I want. Those are absurd positions, but I'm merely bringing it up to illustrate we've got to come somewhere in the middle. And I would like everybody to start coming up with, how do we do this? We've got to consider, if the decision by the board someday, they may or may not, but if the decision is to, limit pumping, with the farmer during a drought, and the drought has yet to be defined. Dr. Bill had something about, you mentioned, and I saw it somewhere about if we only pump X, the spring will flow Y. We need to consider when that happens. My example, if you go to, my wife, family, used to rice farm. They switched it to a row crop, corn and beans. So say, for instance, corn, I mean, it's heavily irrigated, say, in May, because you're going to harvest in June or July. If you go to them in May, you got to cut your pumping in half. Well, bullshit, they paid for seed and fertilizer and herbicides and just, putting the crop in, and you can't do it. You have to give somebody some warning. You have to implement it, I don't know, in January. Say, hey, this year, based on this, you'll be allowed X acre feet. I mean, how do we implement it? What do we implement? I mean, the city, the fort, we don't control it all. But I'd be curious to know, I mean, obviously the city, I think, has drought contingency plans about, and I don't know what it's based on, but just, what is it? I mean, let's,
still don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's stage 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera. Does the fort have something similar? But let's get all that out in the open, and then narrow it down to what the groundwater district can or cannot do. But I want recommendations or thoughts from everybody on what it should be.
We're talking about this through the rules.
Yes,
Through the rules.
right. And again, we're not going to come up, or what I don't admit. Well, I would hope that we can all agree on, here is a drought contingency plan. Dear board, please implement this. I would hope that we can do that. If not, nobody's going to be shut out of this. I mean, there may be, you may have one recommendation, you another. We're going to put them all before the board, and then let the board pick and choose and do something or not.
Well, there's one thing for sure, you ain't gonna make everybody happy.
Well, no, but
That's life.
but that's I mean, I would disagree. I'm happy all the time. I'm happy every time I see you.
Yeah, right.
But no, but Rick's right.
But you say,
The whole deal's compromise, and talking, you weren't here last time, but, talked to Greg, the attorney for the district. I also hired an attorney on my own, just to help educate me on water law. And both of them emphasized, compromise, something in the middle, whatever it is, and, anybody can sue anybody for anything. I mean, that's just the sad fact of life. But if we go through this process, if there's a little bit of give and take, it virtually insulates us against losing. And, so, I mean, I don't want to bring on anything, but you have to operate this district, from a board standpoint on protecting the district. And, so I would hope that, we can come up with something that everybody agree with is reasonable. I mean, if everybody's happy or unhappy, well, that means we're somewhere in the middle. We all want the spring flow. We all want, full irrigation. We want all of that. We've not been blessed with enough water to do all of it. So we need to decide how best to utilize what we have been given. That's my speech. I'm sorry. It sounded more like a sermon. Are there any? I mean, observation, comments?
Let's talk about our next meeting.
The calendar.
Hold on a second, I got one more. So with the management plan here, what are we using? Is he saying to come up with a trigger too and all of it?
To come up
With a trigger. Yeah. Like, how do we have to go off of a trigger? Like to say, if this happens, you gotta do this. Like, we haven't determined that yet, have we?
No.
Dr. Bill.
So we're having to do that too.
Well, no. I would think that would come from Dr. Bill. And I'll try to get his definition of a trigger. Because we absolutely, on what triggers the drought management plan.
Yeah, like if you're going to come up with a drought management plan, what is a trigger?
Is a trigger right? Is a trigger?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Is that where we're starting at? Like, where is the trigger already been determined? Or
I think we have the right to amend the rules.
There's not.
We have the right to amend the rules.
There's not a trigger.
That's what I'm asking.
I'd be curious to know what his definition is. Is it springfall flow? Is it rainfall? Rainfall alone wouldn't be a decent trigger because it depends on when it falls.
Well, that's a big issue. That's going to take a lot of discussion. So,
but
it's a compromise kind of thing.
Well, that's the biggest issue with Dr. Bill's simulation is he has it through calendar year. Well, that's not how rainfall works. So for instance, May we're using for our corn, right? We'll say something triggers. Well, then a month later, it floods and everything's good again. Mm-hmm. So then you're trying to say January 1 when you're, it's kind of always moved. It's kind of hard to go by calendar year.
Yeah, because we have monthly trends.
Well, our rainfall is, how do you say you have annual rainfall? It comes at times. It's feast or famine. It's not hey, we're going to get 2 inches a month. I mean, everybody knows that here. It's not
right.
So these triggers, that's what I'm saying. How,
I would anticipate just because of the way, boards and committees and whatnot move, that whatever happens is going to be not so much proactive as reactive. Mm-hmm. I mean, by the time it's triggered, we should have done it 2 or 3 months ago, and by the time it is triggered, hell,
well,
it changed tomorrow.
Like, over there to the east, the way it triggers, it has to hold a certain below a certain, they go by the well depth. It has to be below that for 10 days before it triggers. Yeah. But then whenever it raises above it, whenever it goes over, 10 days over too?
It's 10-day average.
It's an average, 10-day average. But then it comes back.
Well, maybe we
that's what I'm saying. So there's like a lot of moving things here.
No.
But, I mean, we're starting from ground zero.
With something reasonable. That's what our job is.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. I just want to know where we're starting. I want to make sure there wasn't a trigger.
But I do have in the rules over there too, the right to finish a problem.
Yeah. They can't cut you off. You can't cut you off.
Oh, no. I mean,
no, it's in the rules.
I think
just,
yes.
Like anything, once you got it out there.
You got it out there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to open this can of worms, but there are some payment programs too, which I don't know if people would be interested in, but that's what Comanche Springs did to preserve their spring flow, but also make sure farmers weren't losing money or, like what you said, spending and losing money.
We have a board meeting 2 nights from now, but then the one in March is on the 13th. If it's okay with this committee, I'd like to meet twice between now and the March board meeting. you know, David suggested, you know, we're not meeting next week because of the complexity of the drought management thing, everybody, you know, thinking about it, coming up with something. You know, David and I, again, apologize, we're the ones that drive the furthest. You know, I've got a ranch in East Texas, as well as the one out here. You know, he's down in Corpus.
That's
And,
down here.
but what we would like to do is have the next meeting on February 29th, which is a Thursday night.
At 5 o'clock.
Up to Vic is the one we usually ask on that.
But the other 5:30 before was because I had a meeting that day that didn't matter to me what day.
You prefer 5?
Would you prefer 5 or 5:30? What's easy?
Is there any way it can be Friday instead of Thursday?
Oh man.
I'm just one person. I'm just asking. I know, no one wants to be here on Friday night.
I'd rather not.
And then the other day,
The other day, Eric said that, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I should be more respectful, right? Yeah.
You wouldn't want to hear what we do to the one in the valley.
Listen, he said they have their next council meeting on Tuesday, March 12th. So therefore, I would recommend, you know, Monday the 11th,
March 11th.
March 11th, again at 5.
So March 11th and February 29th.
Yes.
What is the meeting when they're gonna hold a board meeting?
Pardon?
What is the board meeting?
The board meeting's the second Wednesday. So it's Valentine's Day this month, and it's the 13th of March next month. And I would like to get 2 more meetings in before that March meeting, just to try to speed things along.
You do have a
So
copy
those
of
are gonna
our,
be
Sir?
5 both days.
you do have a copy of our draft contingency plan. I think we gave it to you the last meeting for the city.
That's a copy of
The drop contingency plan, just in case you wanted to review that as well. I know we
your plan, yeah. I mean,
And that's at 5 on those.
both those things.
Can you send a copy to me?
Sure, I'll forward it to you and then mask it up. We'll send it to everybody if we can do that. Or I'll send it to you.
Yes, I'm gonna have copies, but I'm gonna get copies of them.
Not a problem.
I'll get them emailed out to everybody this week. We
Okay,
haven't
so we'll do
seen
that.
much to.
By tomorrow, we'll have it over to Ms. Hobbs and then we'll send it to everybody.
If
We don't have y'all's.
If Janelle does not have your, please check with her.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Please check with Janelle before you leave to ascertain that she's got your phone and email. You know, David had requested that we do more of this by email just because it's easier to send documents that way. So please, everybody check with her
I like a text.
on that.
Oh, it's there in the email.
Or any other
Yeah, both.
Both.
It's always best.
any other comments, questions? 29th of February and whatever that other one was,
What's the
March.
That's the other issue.
Next meeting, 29th, and then the 11th of March. Thank you all so much. I mean, I know this is a pain in the posterior, but hope you make it to Spotswood.